Good evening and welcome to Branching Out. Hello, Jonathan. Very keen with your waving there.
Hello, Lucy.
And welcome to Barry.
I can wave my my thing. Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Oh, it's got one up there, Jonathan. What have you got that you can wave with?
I've got a tin cup.
Oh,
That's all I'm allowed. I'm not allowed china in our house.
oh.
I'm allowed just tin cups to have me tea out of.
Can't be trusted.
Yeah. Well, welcome to this evening's Branching Out online. It was great to be together on Saturday evening. Fabulous food, fabulous hot chocolate, wonderful worship, and a great message that you brought us, Barry, that we focused on Jesus' blood shed for us. And you posed two questions to us on Saturday. What does it mean to you that Jesus sacrificed himself for you? And what would you be prepared to sacrifice for him? So we'll be digging a bit deeper into that topic this evening. But Jonathan, would you like to start us off with a story of the week, please?
Lucy, I would like to do that, and so I shall right now. So our story of the week, I have been on the Newsround website. I like it. It's pretty good. And a story. I'm not selling. I'm not working for the BBC. Or if the BBC would like to give me any commission for that, I'd be more than happy to accept it and also file it in my taxes. Anyway, moving on. So on the BBC website, the Newsround one, there was a little story about Prince William selling the big issue. No, surely after the Jubilee, has all the money run out? Have they had to sell all their properties? Have they gone bankrupt or not? And poor old Prince William living on the streets. Well, it's not. He is actually the patron of the charity, from what I've understood and read. And it got me thinking about Prince William. Now, I'm going to make a few assumptions here about him. I'm going to presume, because he is royalty, because the beginning of his name is Prince, rather than there is no Prince in front of my name, unfortunately. Although with Jesus, anyway, moving on. That he's probably got a fair amount of money. And the big issue, it's £3 now to buy a copy of the big issue. And I kind of thought, well, surely wouldn't it be just better, instead of him selling them for £3, that he gave some of his money away to the charity, to homeless people, to get them housed, to help them, that, as we use that phrase, that foot on the ladder in life. And I thought to myself, well, Jonathan, what about you? Just because Prince William has all this money, whether he gives it away or not, I really don't know what he does with it. But it kind of challenged me to thinking, well, what do I do with my money? And do I use my money wisely or not? So a story of the week that kind of left me with a little bit of a challenge back at me, of kind of thinking, well, what am I doing? Prince William, busy guy, but yet he's willing to spend a bit of his time helping others out. So, what do you think, Lucy, Barry, of Prince William? The big, obviously, the big story of the week. I don't know why all the newspapers and 6 o'clock news didn't run with this one, but of Prince William selling the big issue.
I have to say, it's a new news story on me. I've obviously not watched enough news round this week.
No, you've missed news round out, haven't you?
No, I think it's great, isn't it, that actually he could easily give the money away and probably wouldn't even miss a huge amount of it, but actually that he's getting down and, I think I was thinking back to Saturday, Barry, where you were talking about making those sacrifices. And actually, I suppose he sacrificed his time and things like that, hasn't he, actually, to go out and meet people and to have those conversations, really.
Yeah. And it's publicity, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about it now. It's been on Newsround. It's been, presumably in other places. And for the charity, it gets people talking about that charity. And maybe other people think, well, if Prince William's supporting it, then that's the sort of thing I want to support. So I'm sure it'll help them in the long run to gain more supporters for it. But it's something interesting about charities, isn't there? From what the Bible says in terms of, we're supposed to give generously and cheerfully, but also we're not supposed to make a big song and dance about what we give our money to and how we give away to charity. So that's a difficult one, then, isn't it? If actually someone like that, it would benefit the charity for him to say, I endorse it and I give to it. It's a challenge.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. So yeah, just a little kind of story of the week to get us kind of thinking about our time, our finances, and what the future monarchy, the future king is willing to do to be down on the streets. Is that kind of reflective of what Jesus did? Maybe, who knows? Anyway, something to think about.
Definitely.
A story of the week.
Yes. Well, I know I'm going to be watching much more news round next week. That's for sure.
Yeah, do.
Yeah. Well, I was absent last month. I left my husband in charge, and I came back, and Phil Worthington had been knocked off the top spot in our, I don't even know what you call it, branch game.
Yeah. I don't know, what is it? Quick fire round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
questions.
having watched the live stream, I'm not sure whether my husband actually shouted stop in time, if I'm honest. I heard the alarm go, and he pathetically waved his phone around. So, yeah.
You're obviously a bit tougher than him, Lucy.
Yeah.
Do we need a stewards inquiry back on it? Do we?
Yeah. We're slow motion replay. See if it was valid or not.
I mean, it's irrelevant really, because obviously Barry and I are going to beat that score tonight. But,
Well,
just putting it out there.
Fighting talk. Come on, Luce. We can do this.
Right. So, Barry, I'm sure you've played this game before or played along at home, but I'm going to ask you some quick fire questions. We're not bothered if it's not the right answer. Just the first thing that comes to your head, shout it out so that we can move through the questions as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Jonathan, have you got your trusty analog watch there, please?
It is here.
Don't face it, Jonathan.
You'll be able to see what the time was, that we are actually live.
Yeah.
Go. So, right. Hang on. It's just coming around to the 30-second mark, so let's not kind of jump in it too quickly. So, Lucy, are you also going to keep the score as well?
Yes, I've got
do the good old multitask as well. So, here we go. We'll go 3, 2, 1, go.
Salad, cream, or mayo?
Mayo.
Hot dogs or burgers?
Burgers.
Favorite TV show?
Friends.
Favorite superhero?
Thor.
Today's breakfast?
Croissant.
Football or rugby?
Football.
What would be your superpower?
To sneeze cheese.
Sunshine or snow?
Sunshine.
Favorite band?
Blur.
Poached egg or scrambled egg?
Scrambled.
Stop. Sorry, before we go any further,
we've got a backtrack.
Who can think that quickly as a superpower to sneeze cheese? Did I hear it?
Amazing.
I think you did. Yeah.
Like you'd say you cure world hunger every sneeze.
Oh dear.
I've got to ask, Barry, is it a certain type of cheese that you sneeze, or?
Well, I was thinking of that string cheese they have in America, because that would come out well. But, I mean, maybe if as I worked on the power, maybe I could do different cheeses to order. So, depending what you wanted.
Would you be living in fear that people would be going around with a feather ticking you under the nose all the time?
Oh, hay fever season would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? You'd be knocking people out with
yours.
You'd be knocking people out with rounds of Edam.
Sorry, that was a total sidetrack. Lucy, hey, that was quick. There was a lot of questions.
You did well, Lucy. Well done.
Thank you.
I am feeling nervous for Adam that he's already been knocked off the top spot literally 30 days later.
Well,
what can you reveal to us, Lucy?
I can reveal that for a long time, Bishop, Rachel and Aderin had the score of 8. Phil then took over with a score of 9, which was then overtaken by Adam Legg last month. Barry, you've also got 10. You are our joint winner. Well done.
Oh, I'm quite happy to be level with Adam. That's quite. That means he won't be too upset with me. So excellent.
That was impressive stuff tonight, Barry. Thank you.
That was pretty good. And may I also say, as a timekeeper, and if you want to rewatch this and time it yourselves, that was bang on the 30 seconds as well to get all those. So that was extremely impressive. And like I say, so impressed that sneezing cheese is a super.
That's great. Yeah.
I always go, just say flying. Just say flying. Get on with it.
No, flying's boring. Come on, Sneeze and Cheese is where it's
So
at.
last year.
You wait until you see the next Marvel movie. It's going to be in it.
Yeah.
All about the cheese.
We need to date stamp this, Barry. Okay, if there is any superhero from now on that comes out to sneeze cheese as their superpower, we need to date this. That this is where they got the idea
That's
from.
right. Branch wants the royalties from that, definitely.
And that way, Jonathan, nobody can disagree with Barry.
Oh, cue all the cheese jokes.
Drop the mic. Oh dear,
That's
Lucy,
the night out.
it's phenomenal.
Excellent, very good.
Jonathan, would you like to sum up then? We obviously know that Barry is would like to sneeze cheese, but could you perhaps sum up from Saturday evening, please?
Yes, I don't think there's going to be any cheese involved in any of this at all, in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, Barry, do you know what? I have just been so enjoying Branch at the moment, and fantastic that we're now streaming live Branch on the Saturday night. It is it's not quite a pay-per-view. This is not the WWE style pay-per-view stuff, but we are kind of doing it as an unlisted YouTube film clip, whatever we call these things. So you need to kind of email us to find out more about how you can watch it live at home. But anyway, moving on. So Barry, we're looking at Jesus, taking just so many different aspects of him. Okay, yeah, we celebrate for unto us a child is born. What happened next has been our big theme, and looking at Jesus's blood shed for us. A real kind of fun topic that Barry was. I think he actually chose this himself. I'll be honest.
I think I did, and then I think I regretted it. No, it was good.
Less of a punishment. But Barry, I mean, if I say the Holy Spirit was with you, quite literally, it's phenomenal. Just what you brought out of that session. I'm just going to run through really quickly, just a few things that you mentioned, that you took us basically from Passover all the way through to Jesus's death, remembering that traveling that they used to do in that traveling to Jerusalem to sacrifice that lamb or goat, as you kept on emphasizing that point, of remembering the good things, absolutely, but actually remembering those things that are less good, the things where we've let ourselves down, our friends, other people, and let God down, and a reason for needing to sacrifice that lamb or goat. And you talked about being excluded from school. I don't think that was actually you personally being excluded, but actually the point of being in God's presence, that actually we don't deserve. We don't deserve to, we deserve to be excluded, is kind of where you were going for, and what you were kind of saying. But yet God had a solution, and we kind of finished the first talk there and had a look at those questions. And the second half of your talk, I really, really enjoyed this part, because you were looking at this Leviticus of blood is life, and what did that actually mean? And you took us to the kind of scientific route of the four things that blood gives us: oxygen, water, white blood cells, and it's a coagulant. Hopefully I said that correctly or thereabouts. The oxygen is the life, water is hydration, white blood cells is protection, and the coagulant is the healing. And actually, Jesus is those four things. And just the need that we have, and our benefit, that Jesus was willing to die for us, to shed his blood, the total himself to us. So that's a kind of the summing up of basically what you said, or kind of thereabouts, I think, Barry. And I think really kind of, I guess where I want to go, my kind of first question, if okay, to throw it straight to you, Barry, kind of almost your kind of journey of why you felt the need that you wanted to say, to use maybe a bit of a Christian phrase, I accept your sacrifice of your blood, Jesus, for us. A kind of, one of the things you mentioned was about wanting to enter God's presence. Or maybe to ask that question, why do you want to enter God's presence? and accept Jesus' blood shed for you? Sorry, I'm going to boosh straight in.
No, that's fine. I think it goes right back to when that first happened for me, when I first felt God's presence and chose to follow him and chose to become a disciple of Jesus, a Christian. That happened quite late for me. So I didn't grow up in a Christian family, and I had I didn't have that experience growing up. I knew quite a lot about Christianity because I'd studied, RE at school, and I'd studied some of it at university. So I was in my late 20s when I found myself in a church for the first time ever, at a point in my life where everything had fallen apart. I believed the lie that the world tells you, that if I just worked hard enough and tried hard enough, I could be whatever I wanted to be. And I tried to do that and hadn't made a very good job of it. And my life was pretty rubbish. And I felt like I'd failed massively on every aspect of life. Relationships, work, where I was living, everything just wasn't what I wanted. And in that moment of being in a church service, I felt God reach out to me, and I felt that I was in his presence, and he gave me the option of losing control of my life and giving that control over to him. And everything changed in that transaction that happened between us, where I said, okay, I might as well, because I've got nothing else. I've got nothing to do. And my life completely, that was the low point, and everything picked up from there. And recognize, as I dug more and more into what it meant to be a Christian and started to understand what happened in that moment, that's when I started to really understand what Jesus did on the cross, what his sacrifice was all about me, and amazingly, not just me, but everybody else having that opportunity to go, even though my life was so awful and I had made so many mistakes. And I'd spent quite a lot of my time being quite anti-Christian and quite negative towards Christians. Despite all of that, God welcomed me into his, not just his church building, but into his presence.
Yeah.
Gave me that chance to be redeemed. And it's always been an important thing to me to be able to know that I can go unashamedly to God, and without any fear.
Yeah. No, wonderful. Thank you for that testimony. That's great. And I think there's that kind of, as you say, just at the end there, just that being able just to go to God unashamedly, isn't it? Picking up again that idea of the Jewish people having traveled from wherever they were to Jerusalem and reflecting upon their life over the past year, because the sacrifice was done once a year. And they went to the temple. I'm just reflecting upon that. And obviously we as Christians, we take, if maybe you out there watching, you might take communion or beginning to think about taking communion. And I guess that journey, isn't it, that we can do in a communion service when we, whether it's wine or whether it's, grape juice, Ribena, or whatever, that we take of that journeying to go, actually, what does it, where have I been that I can go, yes, I've done this, I've said that, I've thought those things, and yet I can come unashamedly to Jesus and accept his blood shed for me. And that's just wonderful, isn't it? To really kind of hone in on ourselves. And I know as Christians, we get bad press about banging on about sin and being sinners and all condemnation, everything else. But it's the exact opposite, isn't it? That Jesus is actually about. And that freedom, isn't it, of where they were going, that first Passover, it was absolute freedom that they were going into, wasn't it? So we can be free from our sin.
Yeah. And I think, guilt and shame is a massive problem in people's lives when we all do stuff that we regret and we shouldn't have done, but it's very easy to get caught up in feeling ashamed of what you've done and to feel guilty for what you've done. And I think in our modern society, things like cancel culture make that even harder, because, you know, you can, if you're 15, 16, 17, you could post something on social media now, and in 10, 20 years' time, that could be brought up and you could lose your job over it, lose your career over it, lose your family over it, or just be condemned by society for something from that long ago in your life. And we see that in you know, particularly in celebrity culture. We see people having their history raked up and then being judged for it. So that fear of making a mistake and of not owning up to it or not admitting it because of how people are going to react, or if it does get revealed, you know, we see it in our politics with parties during COVID. You know, there's all those things that come up and people get judged for it. And what Jesus does is he actually gives us that ability to go, yes, I have done this, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I can move on from it. I don't have to be held back from it. That doesn't have to be the thing that defines the rest of my life, because Jesus takes that away from us. So that is freedom. That's amazing freedom that God offers us in that.
Yeah, it's so important in that actually a mistake we have made through Jesus's blood is not going to define us.
Yeah.
What defines us is Jesus's blood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So important to remember that. Absolutely. Yeah, great. Lucy, any you kind of had the joys of I know you were in the kitchen on Saturday, so kind of a little bit busy to listen to Barrie, but had the privilege and pleasure, this is an advert, of rewatching it live again. Kind of what kind of did you sort of pull out having rewatched it now?
Yeah, I listened to it again this afternoon, and you know, there were bits that I'd heard on Saturday and bits that had passed me by, so it was really, really good to listen to it again. But I think the biggest thing that stood out for me was, and you touched on it earlier, Jonathan, where you used that illustration, Barrie, of about to be excluded from school, but actually there was a way out of it. And you talked about bringing the lamb or the goat and sending that home, and it had to be cooked and things like that. And I thought that is so amazing, because actually, no matter what we've done in life, you know, Jesus has paid it, hasn't he? He's covered it all for us. And actually there's, you know, we can come to him. Just I can't get my head around it sometimes, what an amazing sacrifice it is that was made for each and every one of us. And yeah, just how awesome that is. So I think in life, like you say, you know, we make a mistake and sometimes there's no way out of it really, is there? We've got to live with the consequence of that, but actually he takes it all from us.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things that's really shaped me in the way that I treat other people, is recognizing that forgiveness and that grace that you get through the cross and through Jesus. And actually, how do I then demonstrate that to other people? And so, you know, I've been doing youth work for 20 years, and a lot of the time I've worked with young people who have been rejected or excluded from school, or, you know, don't feel like they fit, or have criminal records, all of those things where they don't feel like they're accepted. And it's been a really important part of my work with them, is to show them that I don't judge them by their past. It doesn't mean that I ignore it, but that shouldn't be a barrier to them moving forward, which it so often is in our society. So I think for us as Christians, it's amazing to think about how it's been done for us. But actually, you know, Scripture says, doesn't it, as you have been forgiven, so you should forgive. We need to pass that on to others and demonstrate that to other people as well.
I think it's just amazing, isn't it, to know how much we're loved by our Heavenly Father, really. And yeah, I suppose, like you're saying, it's having that Christ-like attitude. And actually, are we being imitators of Christ in things that we do? Are we judging people, or actually are we being, you know, loving and accepting to others?
Yeah. Absolutely. Are there any kind of, you know, potentially we've got, well, I will be viewing this later, so we'll have at least one viewer afterwards. But potentially, there's those people that might be watching, that young people that are Christians, and those young people that might be kind of just exploring. They might be going to church, but still exploring faith. And just to kind of totally put you on the spot, Barry, of drawing upon all of your wisdom for this particular moment, pinnacle of your life, to be able to kind of really sum up really that the essence of or the importance of Jesus's blood shed for the individual that is watching, whether they be that kind of Christian, that kind of I feel that kind of I'm going for God, and those others are kind of going, ooh, you know, I might want to go for God in about 10 years' time, but not now, thanks. Kind of thoughts.
Yeah.
On the spot again.
I think the blood thing, I mean, you just before we came on live, you mentioned that I'd use that word "ookie" when I was talking on Saturday night. You know, and when we physically talk about blood, it does make us feel ookie. It makes us feel, you know, because it's unnatural for our blood to be on the outside of our bodies. And I talked about this on Saturday. So the fact that Jesus was prepared to put himself through that, to take all of that pain and suffering and to spill his blood for me, and knowing that is all tied up in that sacrifice, that was an act of not just taking. We can easily think of the cross as being, well, I should have got beaten up, but Jesus got beaten up on my behalf, you know, taking a beating for us. But it's much, much more than that. It's about a life lived of sacrifice. It's about Jesus giving everything just so that I can have that freedom to be with God all the time. And that blood is a massive symbol of that, of Jesus giving his whole life, everything that he was, all of his humanity is given over in that sacrifice. And so that's the thing for me that, you know, like Lucy was saying, it's almost unbelievable. You know, we watch. I've been watching the Star Wars films with my teenage daughter, and we watched the very last Star Wars film yesterday. And I'm sure it's not a spoiler because it's been out for a while now. But in that film, Rey she actually says that she gives some of her life to save Ben, and she uses the Force to save him. And then at the very end of the film, Ben gives all of his life to save Rey. And so much of our culture is built around seeing these amazing acts of sacrifice in people, because it's mind-blowing, and it's the ultimate act of love for somebody, that you would be prepared to sacrifice just a small thing for them. You know, Prince William giving up a day to go and sell the big issue is a sacrifice. Giving up some food to give to the food bank is a sacrifice. But to give your whole life for everybody is the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just conscious of time. So if we're happy to kind of move on, Lucy and Brown, if there's anything that's burning to say more on the topic. The reason why we're doing a slightly shorter branching out this evening, Barry is still at work. Believe it or not, he's we don't mind at Branch. We're very happy to advertise other things that are going on, and it doesn't even have to have any monetary value or benefit for Branch whatsoever. But Barry is, if I say he runs, or part of a team that runs, coordinates, facilitates movement that happens throughout Gloucestershire, happening in different towns. It's recently started in Stroud, was it a month or so ago, and this evening it has been in Tewkesbury as well. It's similar. I'm sure it's similar and different to Branch. We are very much kind of endorsing the fact that you know, hey, if you go to Branch and you want to go along to movement as well, go for it. You know, if you just soak up. I mean, it's one of the things I think I wish I learned probably a bit younger, or definitely in my younger years, of soaking up as much if I say Christianity as possible, I don't quite mean that. That's a bad phrase, I know. But to get to these things, to be part of, whatever's going on our doorstep, which Tewkesbury is not too far away. And although you're too late now because it's happened. But the next one, Barry, is going to be...
Well, there's slightly further afield in Keynsham, which is Bristol Way, in July. But we will be coming back to Gloucestershire. We haven't got a date yet for it, but it'll be in the autumn.
Yeah. Well, for us, Keynsham won't be... It's over the bridge.
Yeah.
25 minutes if you live that end.
Yeah, the south of the forest is probably easier to get to than Tewkesbury. So there's one in July, and then, as I say, in the autumn we'll be in Cheltenham, and then back in Stroud, and then back in Tewkesbury, and we'll be
so on and so forth. Yeah. So we'll hopefully
to be integrating with others as well, though, because sometimes you are the only young person in your church, and it can be a bit lonely. So I think events like Branch and others are just so important.
Absolutely.
Developing those friendships with one another, getting to know other fellow Christians.
And that's a perfect segue into me giving a plug for my podcast as well.
Please do. Please, yes.
So we've just launched, just this week actually, we've launched our podcast, which is called Connected. So Youth Connect is a project which does just that Lucy's talking about, is trying to connect young people together across Gloucestershire. So we've got a podcast. If you follow our Instagram at Connect Youth, you can find the links to that, or it's on the Diocese of Gloucestershire website. And we're going to be talking about some big issues that impact young people. The first big issue we're talking about is conflict. So next week's pod is an interview with a young man who is in Ukraine, who is dealing with what it means to be a Christian and living in a country that is currently at war. So really fascinating and heartwarming and heartbreaking conversation that I had with Alex a couple of weeks ago. So that comes out next week. So do check out.
And if I can work out how to use technology, we'll try and spread it around our social media pages as well. Anyway. So we are kind of moving on swiftly to the verse of the week, and Barry kind of led us into this beautifully about forgiving, and this was a verse. I went on to Bible Gateway to find a verse, and this was bang straight in front of me, the verse of their day, and I thought, wow, look no further. Colossians chapter 3 verse 13, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. And I thought that just really tied in with this evening's theme of Jesus's blood. Why did he shed his blood? Not because he was angry at you, but because he wanted to forgive you. It was a perfect act of love that anybody could do, that only Jesus could do, being perfect as he is, that he could be that sacrifice for humanity, that perfect lamb or goat, as Barry suggested at Branch. So as it's difficult, I know, isn't it, a kind of a pain in the backside, these kind of rules that we feel Jesus imposes on us, that git across the classroom that chucks something at us, that I've got to forgive him. Well, it's tough, but I believe there's a blessing. I'm not a kind of a name it and claim it person, so don't get me wrong, but there is a blessing that comes when we forgive other people through that. So be blessed as you forgive those people that throw things at you. Anyway, so Lucy, back to you to sum up this evening's little session.
Yeah, well, as always, it's been great chatting with our guest and with you as well, Jonathan. So, Barry, it's been lovely to have you with us this evening. I think I forgot to mention at the start, but Barry is a youth connector. And as he's mentioned, you can listen to his Connected podcast that's coming out next week. We know that Barry's favourite TV show is Friends, and that he would rather eat a burger than a hot dog. And, well, we all know now that his superpower would be to sneeze cheese. I've got to ask you, Barry, have you got a favourite type of cheese?
I love Stilton, actually.
Oh,
definitely my favourite.
Interesting choice. We've learned that Prince William is the ambassador to the Big Issue, and he has this week been seen selling them. So he's been sacrificing his time. Jonathan, you recapped there on the message that Barrie brought to us last week, how we looked at the journey from Passover to Jesus' death with the sacrifice, with the lamb or the goat, not to forget. You reminded us that blood is life, and that we can enter God's presence, and he is just so accepting of us in the condition that we come. And even when things seem like they're hopeless, it feels like we've failed and that there's no hope, actually God is always there, and we're always ready to be welcomed into his presence. And when we relinquish control of things that we want to be taking over and we don't want to let go of, and we surrender ourselves completely to Jesus, we know that our lives will completely change for the better. We've been reminded that we can come to him unashamedly. And as we reflect on taking communion in church, let's never take that for granted, but actually let's think of that journey that Jesus took, that we took to get there. We know that society judges, but actually Jesus forgives, takes it all away, and grants us freedom. And we've been reminded that Jesus' blood was shed for each and every one of us. He was prepared to sacrifice himself on the cross for us, and he gave absolutely everything for each one of us, that he gave his whole life. And what an amazing act of love and forgiveness that is. And I think I'd just like to end with a question: have we responded to that amazing sacrifice? And if we haven't, then please do reach out and speak to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you ever so much. We're all going to practice our royal waves.
Yes.
As we all say cheerio to both each other and to all those watching until the next time. Branch is back July the 4th, I do believe, first Saturday of the month. And then the following Friday is branching out. Right. You're welcome to join us, YouTube or Facebook Live.
Facebook Live, all the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, it is, okay. So we'll say cheerio to you all.
Enjoy the weekend.
Bye.